Because day to day is hard as a disabled person. I know we
Yeah.
try to put on this show and we try to do as much as we can, but our day to day is very difficult. Recovery as an amputee, it isn't just the physical side. Our disability is so visible and it's focused on the body. But my mind went through trauma as well, and I never really gave myself the chance to actually process what had happened. I suppressed it, and it caught up with me later as post-traumatic stress. It's okay to ask for help because in the early days, there's always so much support, but later on, you feel like you're a burden on others. Strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about allowing other people to support you as you grow.
Welcome to Movao Live, where I interview people from our amputee community to share their personal and empowering life stories. Today, I am joined by Sheena Varsani, who back in 2006 became critically ill with sepsis and spent 2 weeks in intensive care. When she woke, her left leg had been amputated, a moment that changed everything. 19 years on, she's adapted, rebuilt, and grown into someone who describes herself as coming out as an amputee. She's found peace with self-acceptance, rebuilt her confidence, and discovered a fierce passion for paddle. And honestly, from first-hand experience, she's an absolute powerhouse on the court. Sheena, thank you so much for being here. Let's start at the very beginning with the hardest chapter of your story. Sheena, please do take us back to your experience of sepsis and amputation, the day that your life changed forever.
So I'm Sheena, and I've been an amputee for over 19 years. I lost my leg after developing toxic shock syndrome, which led to severe sepsis and eventually a life-saving amputation. It all happened very quickly, very suddenly. I was out one Friday evening after work with friends, and I suddenly started feeling unwell. So I went home quite early, around 6:30, 7:30. And when I got home, I went straight to bed. Now, I live with my mum, but she flew out to India the very same day. And so I was home alone. And the next day, I had family and friends contacting me just to check in. What are you doing today? Are you okay? I answered a couple of phone calls that day, but then afterwards, I was ignoring everybody. My family were knocking on the door because they realized I was unwell. Um, and eventually, by the end of the day, they got the spare key and they came into my house. They brought me downstairs. I was upstairs sleeping the whole day. And then they eventually took me into the walk-in clinic, and the GP that saw me, he didn't take the basic vitals. So he didn't take my temperature, my blood pressure, and I felt sick in front of him. Had he done that, he would have seen that a healthy 21-year-old, those vitals were abnormal. But he sent me home with my family. So my sister took me back to her house rather than sending me back home alone. And after this moment, I actually don't remember a thing. This is a recollection of my family telling me what happened. I was completely delirious. So my sister took me home and eventually had to call an ambulance. And that's when I was admitted into hospital for 2 weeks. Well, intensive care for 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Did they put you into an induced coma then, or were you just asleep at this time?
I think they put me into an induced coma pretty much straight away. And my family, they really went through it because they had to make all of the decisions while I was unconscious for those 2 weeks.
Wow. So what did the doctors say? Was there a reason why you had to have your leg amputated, or obviously the infection had spread too much and they had to make that decision for you?
In those 2 weeks, yes. I mean, they waited, both legs got infected, by the way, but my right leg
Okay.
ended up coming back. So it was touch and go for those 2 weeks. My family had a bit of hope, and then they lost hope, and then they had hope. So
Yeah.
it was very difficult for them. I can't imagine being in that position, having to make all the decisions for somebody else, but they did, and I wouldn't be here without them. So I'm grateful.
Yeah. I hear you had to wake up from your surgery and find out that, you had to have an amputation, like waking up to that. How did that happen? That must have been really, really tough for you.
Yes, it was very surreal, actually, a bit
Mm,
of a blur as well, and I know everyone's thinks that I woke up and I looked down and it was tears, and it wasn't like that, strangely. I just remember everyone's smiles as I woke up.
yeah.
I was obviously unconscious for 2 weeks, so I had the doctors, the nurses, my family, and the physios were already there by my bedside, um, and they were all smiling, and they had to tell me what happened, and I'm slowly registering what happened. I look down at this point, but my nerves are so active that I still feel that there was a leg there. So I
Yeah.
didn't even register that what they were saying was true. I just thought maybe I'm just dreaming or something.
Mm,
But it wasn't until I went up to the ward, when I got transferred up to the ward, the drugs were wearing off, the pain was kicking in, and then eventually the catheter was removed. And you have to go to the bathroom by yourself and you're heavily relying on everyone around you. That's when the reality really hit, and that's when the sadness, the tears, and the emotions really,
yeah.
really came alive.
Oh, what helped you cope during? It sounds like your family were your rock through this hard time. So I guess they were there to support you and see you through the tough times. What else kind of helped you during that period? Because I can imagine that was really tough for you, really
It
tough time.
it really was. I mean, my family and my friends, my nearest and dearest, they were incredible, and their support made a huge, huge difference. Like, I was so weak, I couldn't even feed myself. I was being spoon-fed, so I was at my lowest. But another thing that really helped was actually my rehabilitation team. When I would worry of what my future would look like, if I had my prosthetis, will I be able to do this? They really reined me in and said, just focus on these small improvements every day, um, and just celebrate those little victories. So every time I was getting stronger and stronger, and then I went to the hospital gym and I could see the progress I was making each day at a time.
Mm.
That really helped rather than focusing too far ahead in the future.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. For our community, a lot of the advice that I always give, or a lot of people give, is that don't focus on the end goal. Really kind of think about the small steps, because it's the little wins that
Oh, yeah.
get you to your end goal. And it's a really, really hard process. But yeah, the little wins are what makes everything so amazing for us. Yeah, another question is that I wanted to speak about is that we've personally spoken about this between us. We both grew up as girls, young women growing up as amputees into women at a time when there was really little awareness around disability and difference. There wasn't any social media, there wasn't much Paralympics on mainstream TV or anything like that. And for myself personally, I didn't really have, anyone that I could like look up to as a role model, and certainly no amputee community like there is today. What were those early years like for you, and how does your life compare now to back then?
Once I came out of my bubble, which was in the hospital, and then I had my first prosthesis, the early years were really challenging. There wasn't any social media back then, which I know has its pros and cons, but it also meant, as you said, not as much disability awareness or role models like yourself. You're a big role model for me, Rebecca. And and there wasn't
My
an
role model as well. I'm idolizing your paddle technique, but we'll get onto that conversation later.
we will. And there wasn't an easy way to find a community either. So I
Yeah.
did feel very isolated, as a young woman trying to grow into adulthood and adjusting to a completely new reality. So I just had to figure things out on my own. But I,
Yeah.
but one thing that really did make a difference. And this was pre-COVID. So my NHS prosthetic fitting centre had shared fitting rooms for women and men. And so every appointment I used to have, I used to be with a group of women and we would share experiences and support each other. And that little bit of sense of connection really was comforting. So I know that doesn't happen nowadays after COVID. Everyone has their separate.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that as you were speaking about it. That is so true, isn't it? Because now you go into the limb centre and you're kind of in a room on your own and it's
Yes,
quite eerie.
it is.
There's nothing in there. You're just waiting. Whereas before you used to be with other women and you used to just start talking about life as an amputee. And
Exactly. And
yeah,
conversations just used to get started because I speak to new amputees right now and they couldn't imagine that, first of all, being in a room with different people. But they do feel very lonely. They feel like they're the only one in the village that's an amputee. So I can imagine that being difficult for new
yeah.
amputees right now.
And also in the reception, you're waiting to your appointment. It's not the kind of environment to start talking, but when you're in a waiting room all together, it makes it feel so much more comfortable, doesn't it?
It really does.
Maybe I've never thought about that, Sheena, but maybe they should bring it back, shared rooms.
I think it could be beneficial. It could be beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Maybe we should speak to them, see if we can make it happen. Anyone watching this? Yeah, so you're a proud mum to Archie. So when you were thinking about becoming a mum, did you have any, worries or misconceptions about, carrying a baby as an amputee? And how did your pregnancy go in the end?
Becoming a mum was always something that I wanted, but I definitely had worries.
Mm.
It was questions that I had that I know my my husband couldn't help me with. He would just say, "What's the problem? We've got this." So he didn't meet me as that young, vulnerable, new amputee. He met me as a fierce, competent woman. So he just thinks that I can handle everything. So I realized very quickly that he wouldn't be the person that could help me through this. But I did have the worries such as how would my socket fit? How many will I need? I also had a mechanical knee, so or if there was any other challenges that I hadn't thought of. So I definitely had loads of questions. Um, I reached out to my prosthetist at the time, Morven, lovely. Uh,
She is wonderful, isn't she? Big
Yes,
shout out to her.
Morven. So she wasn't allowed to give other patients information, obviously. However, she could orchestrate me being in a group fitting room with other mums who had had babies. So that's what happened. So I was one appointment, I was with other mums and I was able to ask them any questions about their pregnancies and their births and just get any piece of advice. And that was a huge, huge comfort and gave me so much peace of mind.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Really, really good that you had that organised. What kind of things did you all talk about? Are there any tips now that you could provide for anyone out there who might be thinking about, becoming a mum, but a little bit worried about how they can, carry a baby as an amputee and what changes and what it was like? Any tips would be great.
I think just speaking to your prosthetist, having that open conversation. We actually made a larger socket before even me getting that large. So that really helps. As soon as it was time to move on to the next socket, it was there. I think the main tip is just speaking to other mums and for having
Mhm.
peace of mind. So
How did you find your days? Because as amputees, we find managing our days, we get tired quickly because obviously it takes a lot more energy to get around in daily life. How did you find being pregnant and carrying a baby as an amputee? Did you get much more tired or were you okay?
I definitely got more tired. Your balance is all off because you've got a solid leg and then you've got a prosthetic leg and then you've got a bump out the front. So there is a lot to manage. It was a struggle, but I think just asking for support and not feeling like you have to do it all alone, I think was very important. And listening to your body and going at your own pace. Don't think you need to keep up with everybody else.
Yeah. And, of course, lots of R&R, relaxing, take
Yes,
it easy.
definitely take it easy.
Absolutely. So let's talk about reintroducing sport back into your life after amputation. What was your journey like? You know, you've spoken before about being an extremely active child when you were younger and partaking in lots of different sports. And then after amputation, you obviously, being a sporty individual, wanted to get your identity back and start playing sports again. But you felt quite disheartened because everything felt so different as a amputee. Please share that what that period was like and how you found your confidence again in partaking in sports and fitness as an amputee.
It was a really challenging period because suddenly the sports I loved, I didn't feel the same about anymore. And that my love for that kind of movement changed as well because I couldn't move the same way. So I ended up just trying different sports such as skiing and golf, just completely left field, never tried before. Um, and I stayed active through other ways, through walking and exercising and traveling. Sport, that was a really tough one. I didn't know
Mm.
what was available to me, I could do, what clubs I could join. Again, the communities were quite limited. So yeah, it was a challenging time. Adaptive skiing opened up a whole new world of freedom for me. Joining disability snow sport and going on those holidays, they completely changed my life. As an amputee, I was skiing with one ski and two crutches with mini skis on the side, and the exhilaration was like nothing else. And it was completely empowering.
I haven't actually been on any of their holidays away, but when I was learning to ski, I was living in Manchester at the time. And so I went to the snow dome there and I had some lessons with them before going on my first, ever going into the mountains. And I definitely recommend that as a top tip for anyone. Do try and learn the basics before you go on your first ski holiday. But tell me what it was like going away. I've not heard about these holidays that they do.
It's a fantastic organization. Their goal is to make snow sport accessible for everyone, regardless of injury, disability, or experience. I had zero experience. They have qualified adaptive ski instructors and passionate volunteers, and they create opportunities that we thought were once out of reach. I could not believe I was skiing down mountains for the whole week. And then I got the bug and I kept on going back.
Oh, that's amazing. How did you adapt and how did you feel mono skiing with your riggers? It's quite a I quite like obviously doing amputee football and skiing. Both of those sports you can do without wearing your prosthesis, and I
Yes,
find it's quite a freeing feeling.
it's
How
a
did
free
you
feeling.
find it?
The first afternoon when I was on the nursery slope skiing, I I did think to myself, "What have I got myself into? How am I gonna manage a whole week?" But then by the afternoon, I was along the blue slopes and just adapting, and it was just so free, and I had my ski instructor with me the whole time, so it was tough. The first few days was tough, but then after that, there was no stopping me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. How did you find it quite tiring on your one leg?
Initially,
Yeah.
yes, I did, but you just find something within you to just push through.
Have you ever thought about skiing on your prosthesis?
On a mechanical knee, it was a no-go. I was never going to do it, on my leg. But now that I have the Sea Leg 4, I would definitely give it a go because 'cause they've got a skiing mode. So, I think that's how I would attempt to ski this time.
You know what? Maybe we should try it together.
I think we should. I
Because
think we
I'm on the sea leg 4 as well, and we should see how that goes. Give it a
Okay.
go. Ottobock do actually have some ski clinics as well,
Oh, do
and
they?
I'm
I did not know.
just trying to find out when next year's clinics are on. So as soon as I find out, I will let you know, and maybe we can get over there and join one of the clinics. That would be
I will be there.
fantastic.
I will be there.
Let's talk about the fun part. Let's talk about Padel. So we became friends through this incredible sport. And I still remember the first moment that we met at the Limpower Games when you came and said hello to me in the lunch queue. Please, tell everyone this story and let's talk about Padel.
I remember that day so clearly. I came to the Limpower Games event after receiving my sea leg. So the sea leg played a big part in me trying all of these sports again. So I was open to trying a variety of adaptive sports. And I did come mainly for the parastanding tennis. And I bumped into you at lunchtime. And I said, I'm going to go and say hello to her. And and I did. And I think you tried to recruit me for amputee football
I did.
as soon as you saw me.
I was like, you were talking about tennis. I was like, have you ever tried, do you want to do football? We need some more football players. And then you were like, no. And then you started talking to me about tennis. And then I
Yeah.
had a light bulb moment because
You
I'd only
did.
just heard about the inclusive paddle tour through Ottobock and Alessandro, because Alessandro is
Yes.
ambassador for Ottobock as well. So I was like, "Ooh, Padel," and then I started telling you about it, and it was like your eyes, everything just sparkled. You
Oh,
were just like, "Oh my god, yes, I am. This sport is me." And yeah, we've been playing for the same amount of time. Please tell everyone about Padel and what makes it so accessible and why it's such a inclusive game for all ages, abilities, and disabilities.
well, paddle is social and it's fast thinking and it's fun, but all mobility levels can participate. You don't have to be a super pro, super fit to pick up a racket and play on the court, because it has enclosed walls and it keeps the ball in play. And you play in doubles, so you don't have to run around the court by yourself. And so you're never alone, and there's teamwork, and it's just fun.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. It is so much fun. And the great thing about it as well is that anyone with any ability or disability, non-disabled players, for the inclusive paddle tour, we actually get paired with non-disabled players, don't we? And then we play against wheelchair users and yeah, it's a very inclusive game where everyone can play together and it makes it super fun. Tell everyone about the rules.
The rules are not that different, so people don't have to worry about that if you're playing with a disabled player. If you're in a wheelchair or you're an above knee amputee, you get 2 bounces. If you're below knee or upper limb difference, it's 1 bounce, same as an able bodied player. So that's all you need to know. Is otherwise all the rules
Ooh.
are exactly the same. But this is where Alessandro Osola and the Inclusive Paddle Tour team have taken the idea of accessibility in paddle. They've pushed it up to another level. And I'm so proud
Mm.
to be a part of that movement because they've created this space where people of all abilities and disabilities can genuinely play together. And it's not about competition, even though there is a little bit of that. It's about confidence and community and just making paddle inclusive for everyone.
Yeah, it's a bit like a family as well, isn't it? It's such a lovely, warming environment. And yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of it as well. So, do you have any tips or advice for anyone who may be interested in giving paddle a go, but they don't know where to start?
Well, find if go and see if there's any local courts around you and speak to any coaches because that's what I did. I reached out to a coach and he was open to coaching me straight away. Because you don't always have people, you need 4 people to play. So unless you go with your family, it's a little bit daunting to just go and play with a bunch of strangers. So I would say reach out to your local club and try and get some coaching and just give it a go. It's as simple as that. Just give it a go, and you never know, you might love it.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, for my final question, this is a little bit of reflection. I love to ask this question to a lot of my guests that come on the show. For everything that you have been through throughout your life, if you could travel back in time, and give yourself some advice that may help you on your journey, there may be someone out there now who has a very similar story to you. Maybe they have sepsis, maybe they're going to have an amputation, or they've just had an amputation. What bit of advice do you think, if you could tell yourself back then, would have helped you, that also might be helping someone on their journey at the moment now in their life?
Whew, that's a question, isn't it? Because
It
there's
is a deep
so
one.
many I would tell my younger self. That's why it's the question.
There's a lot of things I tell my younger self, but it's more like, "Don't drink as much, don't party as hard."
Oh, I mean, there's a few things I might actually mention. I would tell my younger self, firstly, just to be kinder to herself and stop worrying about the what ifs and the comparisons and the societal pressures and the fears of not being good enough in any social situation, whether it's your job or with your partner. Because I was good enough and I just let that anxiety build up. So I'd really tell her to be kinder to herself. Um, I'd also tell her that it's okay to ask for help because in the early days, there's always so much support, but later on, you feel like you're a burden on others. But I have come to realize that strength isn't about doing everything alone, it's about allowing other people to support you as you grow. So definitely let other people help you because I know I didn't do that.
Did you not? Did you want to kinda try and handle everything on
Yes.
your own?
I don't know if that's a personality trait or if that's something that I don't know why, but it was
Yeah.
something that I did. I handle a lot of feelings and anything, I just handled it alone.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, we internalize, don't we? Instead of letting out how we're feeling, or if we're struggling, we don't want to admit that sometimes, because we don't want to show that we're struggling, and that
Yeah,
we want to take it on ourselves to deal with. But sometimes in the long term, that's not really the best way of doing it. So as you become
100%.
older and more mature, you
Yeah.
realise talking is the best therapy, definitely.
But most of all, this is probably the most important one. If anyone takes anything from this interview or conversation, it would be this one is something I didn't understand fully back then was that recovery as an amputee, it isn't just the physical side. Our disability is so visible and it's focused on the body. But my mind went through trauma as well. Our mind goes through trauma too. And I never really gave myself the chance to actually process what had happened or give myself any kind of
Yeah.
peace. I suppressed it. And it caught up with me 8 or 9 years later as post traumatic stress. So when it did resurface, I actually didn't know how to handle those emotions and they came erupting out of me. It could have
Right.
been avoided. Um, so definitely look after your mental well-being as much as your physical recovery.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was really lovely, Sheena. I think that will help a lot of people. And thank you for being so honest about that, because that might have been hard to talk about. Do you think as well that, include finding Padel and including sport has really helped you to overcome and all these feelings as well?
Definitely, because you're amongst a community and you have to talk about these things, and talking about it has just lightened so much in my mind as well.
Mm.
It does lighten. It's like therapy, isn't it? When you're speaking about it over and over again and talking to different people, listening to their experiences and how they manage their day to day. Because day to day is hard as a disabled person. I know
Yeah.
we try to put on this show and we try to do as much as we can, but our day to day is very difficult. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I absolutely loved when we were in, and you said, because self acceptance, everyone's journey is their unique own journey, but self acceptance for some can come around quite quickly, and for
yes,
others, it can take a very long time. And I think for us, when we were going through our early journey of self acceptance, it was harder for us because we didn't see anyone else out there like us. But
no.
when you said to me, and it really resonated with me, that you felt like that you'd come out loud and proud as an amputee. Please talk about that, because I love that.
I just felt like because I always had my cosmesis covered, it wasn't I never had my leg out showing, so I could, literally mix in society and no one would know that I'm an amputee. Um, People at work, I could go to work, no one really knew. I just blended in, and I realized years after that that brought its difficulties because no
Mm.
one saw your struggles. I would go into central London, into the office. It is hard doing that as a disabled person in central London, people, all over the place. But I'm doing the same as somebody else. They just don't see your struggles because they don't know. So when I finally got my sea leg and I didn't want to cover on it, and it just gave me this mental freedom because I wasn't worrying about each step. And it was almost, what are the possibilities? What else can I do? And then that's when I started playing sport. And I went on my first holiday and I wore shorts after 16, 17 years, never wore anything shorts or skirts or short dresses. And it was just liberating. I was just
Mm.
really slowly, the stairs can be a bit difficult at first, but after one or two stairs, it just became, okay, this is me, you know,
Yeah.
and
I
it's
tell
just,
you what, I can completely relate to that as well because I used to really cover up when I was younger as well. And I also found if people like now say we've come out as
yeah,
amputees, people can see we're amputees. So if we're walking through the tube in London, people can see, they kind of glance at us, look away, or they kind of allow us some space so we can carry on, or they just ignore us.
yeah,
Depends what
all
kind
that.
of people. However, when I was younger, I felt that everyone was staring at me, which then made me feel so insecure. But they weren't staring at me because they were staring at me how I thought they were. They were staring because they couldn't work out what was wrong with me because I looked like I wasn't an amputee, but I was walking differently and I was obviously going up the stairs differently. But now we've come out, it just feels, like you said, very liberating.
Very
And I
liberating.
can relate to that so much. And I'm sure there's lots of other people out there who have very similar stories. So, thank you so
Thank you.
much, Sheena, for
Thank you for
joining
having
me today. It's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you to everybody at home watching. And yeah, until next time, see you all soon. Ciao.